Welcome to Black Nouveau. This is our edition for April 5th, 2017. I'm Joanne Williams. In 2013, a UWM study found that Wisconsin had the highest incarceration rate of African American males in the nation. We'll discuss what has or has not changed since then. We'll offer some suggestions for gallery night. You can go art crawling this month. And we'll show you how one artist is using comic books to teach history. Did you know that April is Autism Awareness Month? The condition is defined in part as a range of symptoms that affects a child's ability to communicate with others. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimate that autism affects 1 in every 68 children. This includes 1 in 42 boys and 1 in 189 girls. African American children are usually 1 to 2 years older than white children before they are diagnosed. We spoke with 2 families who are on this very tough journey. Autism is not easy.
Take you.
His job at home is to when it gets dark.
It's a constant challenge for the child with the disorder, and it's a constant struggle for parents.
I remember when back when Brandon was younger and people would stare at him, I would feel sick. One time we got on the bus and somebody told me I need to whoop him because he was showing, and I for a long time couldn't get on the city bus. I'm telling you, I was for a long time when I think about it, I still get sick because of how people were just staring at us. But now if someone's staring, I look back at them. And I let them know, looking at them like, no, it's not okay to stare at my son. I don't say anything to him, although at Mayfair the other day I did say something to this kid. I don't feel bad because I didn't say anything like bad. I just said, is everything okay? You were looking at my son. I just want to make sure everything's okay.
With you.
Right. Are you okay?
Veronica Nolden is talking about her 12-year-old son, Brandon.
There were just a lot of things as I compared him to his older brother that he wasn't doing. And then, of course, you hear people whispering in the background, something is wrong with that kid. And so after a couple of years of, I took him to the doctor and kept saying that, this is not right or that's not right. And then they would say, well, give it a time. All kids develop differently. And then at 5 years old, he was diagnosed actually by the school.
What did you think when you heard the whispers?
I was upset, probably a little in denial, because I wanted him to wake up tomorrow and be right on task. So I didn't want to believe these people. And as I saw him, this was my baby, and nothing was wrong with him.
Tara Adams is talking about her 15-year-old son, Kobe. Both mothers knew little or nothing about autism until it became part of their family. And both want other parents to be aware, be alert, and be understanding. When you finally found out what his condition was, were you relieved?
No, because it was another unknown journey that I didn't know about, and I didn't have resources, and again, I didn't know people who had it that would help me. And then going through and trying to get the therapy, someone would tell you this, someone would tell you that. So I wasn't relieved probably until he was about 8 when the help came in and I started seeing some progress.
Kobe's father, Reggie Adams, fought back with knowledge.
I didn't know much until I got some books and read up on it. And then when I read up on it, I really read up on it. And then a lot of things that I was reading, I was starting to think, oh, okay. But then as you be around him, you learn more from him. I mean, he's immaculate with his hands, with computers. He's phenomenal. So he teaches me things.
What do you want other dads to know about autism?
Just be there for your kids, work with them, and they'll get through it. And I call him my little angel because he's so special, and he just brings joy to my heart. And I'm proud of him.
The first thing I would always say was somebody to find a support group. There is nothing like a support group, because you are dealing with people who are in the same situation that you in, or somewhat similar, rather than someone who is dealing with a child that doesn't have a disability and does not understand.
So do you support each other?
Oh yeah,
almost definitely.
All the time.
All the time. Sometimes we're supporting each other to 2 o'clock in the morning. We do it. But I mean, it's become more than that relationship. We have become friends.
Elizabeth Drame is chairman of the Exceptional Education Department at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. She believes that Black parents need all the information they can get about autism, but too often they don't get it.
There's a racial disparity gap in the diagnosis of autism and in the access to intervention. And so Black children are 1 or 2 years, they're diagnosed 1 or 2 years later than white children. Okay, so there's a problem there. And it's not because there's a difference in the rate of autism across racial categories or socioeconomic categories. There's no evidence to suggest that there's a different rate, but there's a reason for the disparity, and it's primarily because of lack of knowledge and also because of lack of access to quality health care, and sometimes because of negative perceptions or negative misdiagnoses.
Autism disorders are differences in how the brain uses information. Some cases are mild, and some are more pronounced. Autistic disorders are categorized on a spectrum, all the different kinds under one umbrella. This is how they are labeled: Asperger's, childhood disintegrative disorder, Rett's, pervasive developmental disorder, and autism. And medical professionals don't always get the correct diagnosis the first time.
What did you think when you were getting all these mixed messages? One doctor was saying one thing, somebody else was saying another thing, the teacher was saying this, and how did you feel?
I felt very overwhelmed. I felt lost. I felt like I need somebody to tell me exactly what I need to do. It's just too much information, too many people telling me different things. I need for one person to tell me what I need to do, where I need to go, who I need to talk to, and then how to get those tools for my son set in place for him for the rest of his life.
What do you want other families to know? What do you want other big brothers to know about having an autistic sibling?
I think that you shouldn't let that dictate your relationship or use that as a crutch or anything. I mean, at the end of the day, they're just like you. They have their own aspirations and goals and dreams, and nothing should kind of hold them or hinder them from achieving what they want. Sure, it might take you a little bit more time to understand it, but at the end of the day, they're just another kid.
Here's a website where you can find resources and more information.
And then here, Spotswood is sitting in an encampment, and he gets a letter, and it's a letter from his daughter. And here's where I'm trying to show the mounting anger when he starts to read the letter from his daughter. I received a letter from Mary telling me that you say I tried to steal my child away from you. Now, I want you to understand that Mary is a God-given right of my own.
Artist and author Joel Christian Gill shares a passage from his comic book entitled Strange Fruit, Uncelebrated Narratives from Black History. Yes, it's a comic book about Black history. Gill, a painter by training, found his work wasn't quite communicating his thoughts, so he tried another venue, comics.
I once offered to pay you $40 for my own child.
After painting for a number of years, a friend of mine told me that my paintings weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, which is not something that you want to hear after spending a lot of time painting. And so I actually started developing and going back and studying how to get how to use visual narratives in storytelling. So I went back and got a library degree. I don't know if you're familiar with a library degree, but a library degree is when you get a library card and you go to the library and you learn as much as you possibly can about that subject. So I got a library degree in illustration and comics, and then I started drawing comics.
Those paintings that I was doing before and how these stories.
I was wondering, just as an audience member at this Madison, Wisconsin bookstore was wondering,
why did you title your book Strange Fruit? Like, I always think of strange fruit as, the image of a lynched body and the gruesome, swelling.
So I did a series of paintings that were called Strange Fruit, and so what I was trying to do with the title was turn that on its head. So for me, Strange Fruit is a connection to the song and a connection to that horrible history, but it's also turning it on its head and thinking about it as think about it in terms of the tree of American history, right? And this is the odd fruit that's on the tree. Like, this is the fruit that's fallen off that you have to go look for. This is the fruit that people don't often pick. So that's where I came up with the title Strange Fruit.
Comics are a sneaky way to teach people anything. Some of the imagery that I use in the book, specifically with the blackface caricatures, I'm trying to use that as a symbol to show, like, this is why you shouldn't do that. This is why, like, people, I don't think people understand it. They think it's harmless or just this thing that they can do. But I think in a lot of ways that people don't understand that, you know, I'm trying to make that connection to the past. Because we've come a long way, but we still got a long way to go. And I think it's really important to just remember that stuff. Like, one of the things that really irritates me about cartoons sometimes is specifically Tom and Jerry, because they've taken out all of the racist elements of Tom and Jerry.
Look, there's Africa. We'll disguise ourselves.
Well, I'm sure glad to see you again.
And Bugs Bunny. And I grew up with all that stuff, and I understand why that's bad, but they've actually cut it out. So it's to show it, like, it's to not show it, it's to sort of pretend like it didn't exist. History is more powerful when it's balanced, when you not only show the good and the bad.
Strange Fruit is Gill's first book. His second book, Tales of the Talented Tenth, based on African American history, is more action-based.
So stories about people who did really amazing things. When you start drawing comics, you know, you start with superheroes. And so I started drawing Strange Fruit just as it was almost by accident. So I would start with mini comics, which are like little zines. And as I would draw one, people would start telling me other stories. People would say, have you heard of Harry Bucky Lou? Or have you heard of Major Taylor? Have you heard, like, they would just start telling me all these other stories about these other people. And every time someone would tell me a story, I'd take out my book and I'd write it down, and I would go back to the library at the New Hampshire Institute of Art, and I would start researching it and seeing what I could come up with. And then eventually I would draw a story about them.
He started out wanting to draw really interesting stories, and now they're teaching tools.
I don't personally think of there being a specific age group. I think if you're interested in history and interesting stories, it would be a good book to pick up. People don't expect that they're going to learn something. So when you pick it up, you're like, oh, it's comics, it's superhero. But when you start learning stuff, it's like, oh, I learned something about that. I've learned stuff from comics. I mean, there are just things that comics, you know, specifically with kids, you can give it to a kid and say, here, read this, and they'll know some things and they'll ask some questions about it. It's a sneaky thing.
You know, Strange Fruit ultimately is a book that I would specifically say is more American history than it is Black history. Because the stories in Strange Fruit would not happen in any other place. I can't take these stories out and put them in Europe. They won't tell the same. Because the history of institutional racism and the way we think about race in society in America is embedded in almost everything that happens here. I once offered to pay you $40 for my own child. I am glad that you did not accept. The day that I enter Glasgow, I want you to understand, Miss Kitty Diggs, my child is my own. You call my child property. I have no fear of getting her out of your hands.
Mass incarceration of black males, it's at epidemic proportions nationally. So then you say to yourself, well then, out of that experience, how can we be even worse?
That's a clip from a BBC report that documented a 2013 UWM study that found Wisconsin had the highest rate of incarceration for African American males in the nation. Joining us now is David Leiners, Executive Director of Wisdom, a statewide group of faith leaders and activists dedicated to statewide prison reform. Thanks for joining us.
Good, thanks for having me.
Did parts of that study surprise you?
I wish it did, but not really. I mean, I think we in Milwaukee have kind of known for a long time that this was going on. I think maybe it surprised me that we were that much worse than the nation as a whole. You know, I knew we had the same disease as everybody else. I didn't realize we had it that much worse. But no, the fact that like way too many folks are incarcerated, that hasn't been a surprise for a long time.
Has the numbers changed at all?
Not a lot. I think for the next census, we'll find the number of African Americans in Wisconsin prisons might go down a little bit because, you know, Milwaukee County's actually been making a big effort, and also partly because the number of white folks going to prison is actually going up out of the rest of the state. But it's still, the imbalance is still there.
We talk a lot about prison reform now. It appears to be a bipartisan issue. Why is it an issue that we can't seem to resolve here in Wisconsin?
You know, we're as mystified about that as anybody. You know, Michigan, which pretty much kind of has the same political makeup as Wisconsin does in terms of who's in their legislature and their state house, they're making great strides forward. We're just stuck in this state, whether it's the governor's, you know, past history of being the champion of truth in sentencing. I'm not quite sure. Other states seem to be making some better headway. In our state, we're still kind of stuck in this tough-on-crime paradigm.
Well, in his last budget, he talked about coming up with some solutions, you know, addressing drug addicts and other things like that. Are you hopeful that anything will happen with that?
There's a couple things we're hopeful of. I mean, one is they are getting serious in the legislature now about recognizing that substance abuse and mental illness are not crimes, and that we really need to be providing health solutions for that. So there are some things in the budget. It's way too little. They're really, you know, they're taking a very small approach to a very big problem, but at least they're taking a little step in the right direction. The thing we might be the more hopeful about is the fact that they're going to really review the whole revocation process. A lot of the excess of people we have in our prisons are people getting bounced back and back and back into prison for crimeless revocations. People who are out on extended supervision, who maybe break a rule of supervision. They don't commit a new crime, but they're getting bounced back to prison for an average of 1.5 years at a time. The budget at least promises they're going to look at that. And
yeah, we talked about revocation in our own private conversations. Can you give me some examples of what people are being sent back to prison for?
Sure. You can be sent back to prison for missing an appointment with your parole agent. Just talked to a guy the other day who was sent back. His parole agent came to his door. He didn't realize his doorbell didn't work. She rang the doorbell. Nobody answered. She wrote him up. He called on the phone to say, "Weren't you coming by to visit?" It didn't matter. He got sent back to prison for not being home when he was supposed to be home for a home visit. Sometimes it can be for failing a drug test. The ones that are really disturbing is a lot of people get sent back because they're accused of something. And it becomes kind of a weapon in certain parts of the community. People know.
What do you mean?
If you're on supervision and your parole officer gets a phone call saying that you assaulted somebody, you can be sent back to prison even if there's never any charges filed, even if there's never any proof or whatever. Just a simple accusation can land you back in prison. Lots of people get picked up for something like disorderly conduct, the charges are dropped, they still get sent back to prison. So there's a lot of cases of things like that. Unfortunately, the thing with accusations is that everybody knows that. So if you've got a beef with somebody who's on supervision, people kind of know, hey, all I have to do is accuse them of something, and there's a good chance they're going to wind up back.
Now, one of the things that your organization did, you wanted to cut the prison population by half by 2015. That hasn't happened. What's next?
Well, we're not going to give up. We're still at it. We feel like we've kind of demonstrated we could cut the prison population in half.
What would that mean financially?
Oh, it would be huge. It would be hundreds of millions of dollars. If we just stopped with the revocations, if we just stopped with the crimeless revocations, again, we're not talking about people who are committed a new crime. If we just stopped sending people back to prison who haven't committed a new crime, we'd save $145 million a year. We got 3,000 people eligible for parole, and the parole system is shut down. If even a third of them got out, it'd be another $50 million a year. If we actually maxed out on, if we actually brought to scale, the treatment alternatives and diversions, we could save another $100 million. So we could be saving $200 or $300 million a year in Wisconsin by just not incarcerating people we don't have to incarcerate.
Well, this is a conversation that we still need to keep talking about, and thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Good, thank you for having me.
Gallery Night is coming up on April 21st. It's the evening when you can see lots of local art in several galleries around the city. We'd like to suggest a gallery on Martin Luther King Drive. It's where the African American experience can be viewed and shared.
Enjoy being down here. I like the crowd, I like the group, I like the people.
I like the fellowship. I like the fellowship here.
Gallery night's going on all over the city now, and it would be a shame to have this community left out. So this shows that this community creates and participates in what everybody else is doing.
This is Gallery Night at the King Drive Commons Gallery in Milwaukee's Harambe community.
Here at the gallery, what goes on basically is, as you know, most of our galleries, we display art. The art that we display is African American art, and it expresses the history of our people, our culture.
At this Gallery Night location, you can find artists interacting with people, answering questions. Also, this Gallery Night differs from others in the city.
So we have live music, we have food, and I'm not talking about finger food either. You know, we have like dinner food.
And each Gallery Night has a theme.
It's called Mural on the Wall, What's in Your Mirror? We're encouraging people to look at the murals, because murals tell stories about communities. But we're also asking them to think about where would they fit in a mural? And looking in the mirror and looking at themselves and their strengths, their abilities, things that they might want to change to make the community a better place.
Community muralist Ronaldo Hernandez thinks this is one of the most popular gallery nights in the city.
We have the best food, the best entertainment, and some of the best art.
He said it's important this gallery night is located on King Drive because there is a hunger for art, and his self-portrait, Cultural Chromosomes, express that.
If you look at the beginning, there's a Native American half head, half African American head here. It's my mother's heritage. Her driver's license said, her birth certificate said she was Black Indian, and there, I took liberties with the Statue of Liberty, put maracas and bongo drums in his head. I would say just don't come for the food, come for the association, come for and look at the work and look who's doing it and see yourself doing the same thing. Pick up an instrument, a piece of chalk, crayon, charcoal, and start drawing yourself. And it's good for the soul and it calms you and it's therapeutic.
It's inspiring and it's fulfilling to know that it's not all bad out here, that there are young people that are into the arts and that they have avenues to express themselves.
There's something rich about being near artists and talking to artists. You learn a lot from fellowshipping with them. I've met a couple of the artists here and they were really deep in their beliefs and in their art.
And in this age of distraction where everything just pops and pops and pops and moves, the art helps you focus on an idea and look at one thing and see what's really there.
We always complain about things being taken out of the community. And so one thing we can do is make sure that this isn't taken out of the community, and that it's in a good place.
This gallery night, founded by the late Welford Sanders, along with the Martin Luther King Economic Development Corporation, created this space for community artists, be it visual or performing, to exhibit their work and for the community to view their reflection and culture in that work.
There's so much spirit here. It's really, really a spirit. People in the community come out, they support us.
I would say just come out. If you have time, come out and just look and see. I mean, there's a lot of history here.
And before we close tonight, we note the passing of Roger Wilkins, journalist, educator, and civil rights activist. Wilkins worked as a welfare lawyer before joining President Lyndon Johnson's administration, first as an assistant attorney general, then as head of the Community Relations Service. Wilkins left the government in 1969, worked for the Ford Foundation, and became a member of the Washington Post newspaper's editorial staff. He was on the team that won a Pulitzer Prize for its coverage of the Watergate scandal. He became the Robinson Professor of History and American Culture at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. He was also the publisher of the NAACP journal, The Crisis, and was the nephew of Roy Wilkins and executive director of the NAACP. Roger Wilkins died on March 26th at the age of 85. And that's our program for this week. For Black Nouveau, I'm Joanne Williams. Thanks for watching.